Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Full-Time Whistle podcast, bringing you all the latest news after the full-time whistle blows. Today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by former Wigan Athletic manager Paul Cook, who will reflect back on his 3 years at Wigan Athletic and discuss the club's recent administration. So without further ado, here is this Full-Time Whistle podcast with Paul Cook. So Paul, first and foremost, how have you been?
How have I been? Well, it's certainly been a difficult few months for everybody, hasn't it? I think from the initial start of this was when, the country went into lockdown, and the different scenarios were going on in and around football with players taking deferrals, etc. We then managed to go back and play football. Obviously the administration and everything else followed to where we are today, which has obviously been probably as difficult a few months as I've had in my life.
It's been really tough for all involved, and it'd be fair to say that your time managing Wigan Athletic over the last 3 years has been really eventful. We've had the highs, we've had all the lows, from knocking Man City out of the FA Cup to winning League One and then consolidating the Championship. I think it would be great to start this podcast looking back on some of your favourite memories and biggest highlights before addressing the recent events at the DW Stadium. So first and foremost, I want to take you back to where it all began and what initially attracted you to become the manager of Wigan Athletic. Because obviously you just received promotion to League One with Portsmouth.
Yeah, we managed to win the league down at Portsmouth, and I was about to sign a new contract at Portsmouth, and them contract talks never went well in any shape or form, which was very disappointing for myself and for Liam. At the moment of the talks being in probably a difficult position, Wigan Athletic had declared their interest in me, and I wanted to speak to Wigan Athletic. It was nothing about moving back north or anything to do with returning home. It was a footballer decision that I made on the basis of obviously speaking with Portsmouth about their future and also speaking with David Sharp about what he had in mind for Wigan Athletic. It was quickly apparent when we joined Wigan how strong the squad was. You look back on that team in League One, and with the greatest respect to management and managers, it wasn't a difficult team to manage to success.
Yeah, that team was very, very good at that level. I mean, you talk about some of the calibre of players, Will Grigg, Dan Burn, Nick Powell, Gavin Massey, the list just goes on and on. And how do you reflect back on that 2017 to 18 League One season? Because obviously we won the title. It was a record-breaking year with the amount of clean sheets, away wins. It was fantastic from a fan perspective.
Yeah, I think football, especially when you're out of work in football, it allows you to take time and to take stock. And one of the things that really irritates me in the game is how managers can get criticised very quickly. My big thing in football has always been about football players and level of football players player. If you look as I speak to you today, for example, Fulham and West Brom in the Premier League today are struggling to win a game of football. But the two managers are the exact same managers who 3 months ago were being promoted in the Championship by being very successful. And what was apparent for Wigan Athletic, I think even under Gary Caldwell, that Wigan Athletic were a very strong League One team and unfortunately not a very strong Championship team. And that's something that was always difficult throughout my tenure at the club, was changing the balance towards that.
It's a very interesting point of view because if you, like you mentioned, the Fulham and West Brom example, there's quite a big gap in quality between both League One and Championship, and obviously Premier League and the Championship. So how did you, obviously in the second season, which was manager in the Championship, you was able to consolidate? How difficult was that transition and the step up? Because it's an unforgiving league, as you used to say in the press conferences. The amount of quality on show, you think of the talent in size. It was really, really nice to see how competitive we were. I know we had a lot of good players at that time, with Reece James just being one of them. Cal Naismith was great in that season. So how would you explain the goal for class, and how would you explain changing the approach and adopting to that level?
It's a difficult one because the brutal reality of football is that, teams play a certain amount of money. And you're always looking to invest and to take the club further by investing, but you must respect the fact that the clubs in all different levels have certain budgets that you must adhere to. One of the interesting things for Wigan Athletic when we went in, I think the first summer, Dan Burn had a buyout of £500,000, a release clause in his contract, yet no one triggered it because Dan had just played in a relegation team. Yet, quite quickly, Dan Burn then joins a Premier League team for possibly £5 million. So the transformation in players between playing in winning teams and losing teams is huge. You know, players themselves look completely different players. You know, one of the challenges we done, and I felt we done well, in the January, we had to sign senior players to keep us up. And I think you're seeing the introduction of likes of Anthony Pilkington, Leon Clark, Danny Fox, you know, them type of players to keep us in the league. And then the remit all through the change of ownership then was to try and progress the team and progress the club, probably bring the average age down as well, maybe have some more assets on the pitch. But one of the budget restrictions meant, and it was quite disappointing last year because, you know, I heard it levelled at us a few times that Wigan were big spenders. We bought League One players. We didn't buy a Championship player, we bought League One players. And the reason we bought League One players was because we could afford their wages. And we couldn't afford the wages of some of the bigger ones. So the second year round, the challenge for the new lads, especially the likes of Kiefer Moore, Jamal Lowe, Joe Williams, etc., was integrating into a team, you know, was having a brand new set of lads again and starting again. And I think the disappointing thing when you're conceding the late goals and you're going ahead is that the reality for everybody, nobody wants to give football managers time now. You lose 3 or 4 games, everybody wants you sacked. Football's in a really sad place today for managers because the brutal reality is fans now, through social media, have a way of venting frustration and anger. And it's so wrong. The clamour for change in football is not correct. The clamour should be to give managers time to integrate new players, integrate new systems, whatever it may be. And I think at Wigan Athletic, we certainly seen the benefit of that. I think the majority of Wigan Athletic fans would have had me sacked and gone in October, November, December. Yet our form from January would have seen us promoted in the automatic places. It's the same players. The reality for it, the players had gelled, they'd learned from the mistakes, they got better, they got to know each other. And at the end of the season, we've become quite a force to be reckoned with.
Did you ever feel like you mentioned earlier the criticisms and the fans saying they probably would have had you sacked? Did you ever fear for your job at that time? And how does the criticism affect you as a manager?
No, the criticism doesn't affect me at all as a manager. It doesn't affect me in any shape or form because a lot of the things you want to say, you probably can't say. You know, for example, if you look at Kiefer Moore's form from September to December and then look at his form from January to the end of the season, you've had a player who was struggling to find his feet and find his form, yet come the end of it, is probably without doubt the best number 9 in the Championship. So the criticism, if you don't believe in your players, then the criticism would hurt you more. I had great belief, along with the rest of the staff and the players that were out there. You know, the trips home from the games, obviously the well-remembered games, the Stoke away one being a really brutal one, where we lost 2-1 deep in stoppage time. We didn't have another centre-half to put on the pitch. The bench was littered with younger lads, you know, so even if you could see a problem, there was nothing you could do about it. I think the biggest disappointment in the season would have been Luton away. I think the brutal truth of it, I probably did fear for my job after Luton away. Not fear for my job. I genuinely thought the club might decide to go in a different direction. And that would have been totally understandable because we just lost. Again, we were at 86 minutes into the game. We were winning 1-0 and we managed to lose. And from a manager's point of view, you know, some of the scenarios you'll see, for example, I think it was 92 minutes on the clock and we're putting Shea Dunkley on. So we were going to see the game out with 3 centre-backs, Shea Dunkley, Cedric Kipré and Charlie Mulgrew. As we're making the substitution, Charlie Mulgrew puts his hand up and says he has to come off with his hamstring. So instead of having 3 centre-backs, we have 2. Shea goes on, his first contact in the game is a straight red card. So from having 3 centre-backs on the pitch to see the game out, we've now got 1. And unfortunately, we conceded a goal really deep into time. That really hurt the team, it hurt the players, it hurt the staff, it hurt myself. You know, but through all the heartache and the pain, you know, if you work hard on the training ground and, you know, the repetitions with the players and you see the players growing, you know, to see the way the players gelled and finished the season, some of the performances, you know, performances possibly are not a lot of our supporters would have seen, for example, Reading away, you know, where we won 3-0. We dominated the game from start to finish, you know, and the lads grew in confidence. And, you know, to lose 1-15, I think it was at the end of the season, was a fantastic achievement for everyone at the club.
It was an unbelievable run. I think there was 10 clean sheets in the midst of that as well, with the defence being a huge focal point for the team. Cedric Keeper, Leon Balogun, Anthony Robinson, all formed a really good bond. And I have an interesting question for you. How much do you think luck plays in football? Because I feel like at times with some of the late goals, it was very unfortunate, and you can really feel for the players, because there was the amount of results that I felt was a bit unjust on the side's performance was quite overwhelming, really. Because I remember Derby County, a 0-0 game, which was won by a late wonder goal by Andrew Shinney. Luton Town, Stoke City, another few to name. So how much do you think luck plays in football?
Well, if you look at the Derby County games, for example, home and away, Derby County scored 94th minute goals, one to beat us at the new stadium, and also deep in stoppage time at the DW to equalise. You know, the West Brom game at home where we're 1-0 up, and Jamie Jones is getting the drink out the net. You couldn't make it up. And these were times feeling pain, you know, and as a manager, you're looking at performances, you're looking at all the above, and, you know, you'll always be criticised for certain stuff, for not playing certain players, because supporters' arguments will always grow when the team's not winning a game. For example, whatever team you picked on the Saturday, if they get beat, whoever's not playing should be playing. Well, I totally disagree with that. I think sometimes your best team on a Saturday is still your best team on a Sunday, no matter what the result was. The reality for a manager, and the definition, in my opinion, the definition of a manager's job is to make players better, is to integrate players, is to get them back on the training ground on the Monday. And if you look at, for example, the back four in relation to giving late goals away pre-Christmas, or up to 20 games, up to Birmingham away, the same back four then kept 9 clean sheets out of 10 championship games. And the reality is that's hard work. That's the lads learning from mistakes. That's the lads watching the videos. What could we do better? How can we be more professional, if you like? How can we kill games? You know, but we had certain games, for example, like Swansea at home, where we totally dominated Swansea second half. Again, stoppage time, breakaway and Sturridge scores. That's football sometimes. And the pleasing thing was, you know, to see the players grow, you know, to see the likes of Anthony Robinson. You know, you can go right through the team. You know, I don't want to single players out. You know, come the end of the season, with the greatest respect, Wigan were a very, very strong championship team.
Absolutely. And the 2020 resurgence, which saw Wigan, we were bottom at Christmas, and then we ended up finishing the season without the deduction 13th, which is a huge achievement for everyone at the club. In terms of yourself, you did everything you can on the pitch. It's a shame events off the pitch impacted this. The transformation on the pitch was incredible. Was there any change you made behind the scenes to spark this, or do you believe it was purely a case of the players gelling and forming those personal relationships on and off the field?
Relationships are huge. You know, one of the problems for clubs going, when you lose football games in the modern day world, the clamour through social media, through Twitter, through everything, is for change. People don't think that lads should work harder, train better, get fitter, get stronger, learn from mistakes. You know, you only got to look at lads like Cedric Keeper, for example, to see the growth in a young footballer, and where 2 years in the championship has took the lad. You know, and the reality for me, you know, more than anything, was that, you know, working hard with players on the training and believing in your system. If, for example, if a system's not working, you know, pre-Christmas, our flair players couldn't score goals. Our defenders couldn't stop conceding goals. Post-Christmas, and I'm using post-Christmas as the second half of the season, whatever way people want to look at it, you know, we had strikers finding form, we had Jamal scoring, you know, we had then defensive setups that look very strong. And all it is genuinely repetition, belief in the players, going on the training. I'm a believer that if you keep chopping and changing, you'll actually lead to making things worse. For example, if you're giving late goals away, people automatically think putting 5 and 6 at the back is the best way to defend. Retaining the ball and keeping possession of the ball is the best way to defend. And it's something we weren't doing well. Yeah, post-Christmas, you know, some of the results, the West Brom away performance, for example, you know, Stoke own performance where we won 3-0. You know, and we genuinely took apart a very good Stoke team, you know, a strong Stoke team. And our lads were just, the confidence that results give you is amazing. You can't believe what a player can look like with confidence. It's a huge thing in football.
Absolutely. It's one of the biggest aspects. I think one example I saw a lot in, especially after Project Restart, was Jamal Lowe, because I feel like he's a bit of a confidence player at times. And I thought his transformation was both on and off the field in terms of he seemed to have bulked up with his physicality over lockdown. And I feel like it was really nice to see his development throughout the season, because you could just see him grow more and more. And his performances on the pitch were outstanding from that period where we was pretty much unstoppable. I think between the end of the season, like you said, we only lost 1 in 15, which is remarkable, especially at championship level. That is promotion form. And the Latics only lost 3 out of 12 matches between January and March before the season was temporarily postponed after a 0-0 draw with Luton Town due to the coronavirus pandemic. While it's completely understandable the season was stopped given the impact of the coronavirus pandemic, on a football view, could this not have come at a worse time, as you seem to be hitting form?
It is what it is. It was what it was. You know, the sadness for us is everything that unfolded from there. You know, I think, especially when the new owners come in, the remit was to try and get to the Premier League one day. You know, the reality, I think we spent £6 or £7 million in the summer. But the problem with putting new teams together is that you're always looking for new players. You can't go from transfer window to transfer window, making 4, 5, 6 changes to a team. You will, in my opinion, you're creating chaos rather than solving a problem. I felt Wigan were in a perfect position that they putting together a team. The recruitment side of the team was good. The average age of the team was good. And obviously going forward, I felt we were on a really good pathway to getting to achieve what we wanted. Obviously, everyone knows what's gone on, and you know how much you want to discuss that is down to yourself. You know, the brutal reality is we'll never know now, and the team's obviously being took apart with 21 lads leaving the club, which is an absolute shame. It's an absolute, you know, nightmare for everyone involved. And it always goes a lot just deeper than the players. It's the supporters, you know, and the people that lost their jobs as well. It cuts very deep at Wigan Athletic.
It really does. It's such a family club, and the town was completely devastated. We will get on to what happened with the administration, but to stay on the subject of Project Restart, what did you make of it, and how was it like to start pre-season again over halfway through the season? Probably 75% of the season out the way at that point.
I never agreed with coming back. I was one of the managers that never agreed with restarting. I still don't understand how an EFL ran football can have one of its divisions playing football and the other two not. I still don't agree with what we done. I thought the going back with no pre-season friendlies. You know, people kept speaking about the word integrity. Football was never finished with integrity. Football was finished because of finance and money. And that's the sadness of where we are with football today. The games playing behind closed doors are a nightmare. They're an absolute, in my opinion, they're a non-event. There's no atmosphere. There's no match feel. There's no buzz around the stadiums. It's playing football purely because of the financial aspects involved. And that's sad. You know, we have to get football going. I accept that. But we're so needing supporters back in the stadiums. It's untrue. And by the way, I fully respect everything that's going on in the country around the fact that it must be a safe environment for everyone.
Absolutely. But how important do you feel that the fans do come back, especially in the lower leagues? Because that's their main source of income, and clubs could potentially go into administration and out of business because of the lack of fans and the lack of crowd income.
The sad reality of where we are with football today, Jay, is that the Premier League in a heartbeat can satisfy every football club's needs by just writing a cheque to keep everyone going. That's the truth of football. You've only got to look at the spend in the last window, which wasn't even a big window. I think it was 1.2 billion. You know, so when people say about the problems in football, there's a lot of problems in football, but they're certainly not in the Premier League. And somewhere along the line, the people that are running the game, the government, everybody else, they must come in line to make sure that the football clubs at grassroots levels are strong and can survive while they're not allowed fans in the stadium.
Absolutely. I think it is a really, really, really strong point. And to also protect communities, because luckily Bury have had a bit of a turn in form. I know they've started up AFC Bury. They won their first league game. But when Bury FC did go out of business, I spoke to a lot of Bury fans, and they said Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. used to be their worst time of the week because they knew they should have been at Gig Lane. And I imagine that's the case for a lot of clubs throughout the country, because football is the national sport, in my opinion. It's what we all live for. It's what people work 9 to 5 all week to watch at the weekend. And I fully agree with what you're saying. And after Project Restart, Wigan continued their pre-lockdown form with 3 wins on the bounce, and seemed all but safe after a 3-0 victory over Stoke, who were on quite an impressive form at that time, if I remember correctly. And a day later, on the 1st of July, Wigan Athletic entered administration. When did you first find out about this, and what went through your mind when you first heard the news?
First found out about it, I felt something was up at the stadium on the night we beat Stoke. I went home and, it wasn't a feeling, big win. The result had kept us probably in the championship. But certainly through Joe Royal, Darren Royal, Jonathan Jackson, the 3, main people at the club, they weren't about the game, and normally all 3 of them were massive fans of the team and winning games, and, they were brilliant. They'd be in my office at maybe, but there was none of that. By the time I got home after speaking to the staff, I genuinely not to the degree of what was about to unfold. Then got a call the next morning. Jack, would I go to the stadium? I think it was about 9:30, 10 o'clock, possibly even around 9 o'clock. Once I got to the stadium then, I think the press conference was arranged for maybe 12 o'clock, forgive me if the timings are wrong. And, we were then sitting in rooms with administrators being told what was going on. It was, to say it was a shock, it absolutely knocked me sideways, because, credit to Wigan Athletic as a football club, through the Sharp family, through the running of the club. As my time at the club, we'd never waited an hour to be paid. Wigan Athletic, there was no debt at the club. There was no late payments of monies owed. There was no indication whatsoever of what was about to unfold.
It was absolutely gutting. And how let down did you feel when this happened? Because it was a complete shock to everyone. No one ever predicted this. It was completely out of the blue. I remember reading it on Sky Sports News. And I actually thought it was a joke at first. I got sent it on WhatsApp, and I thought, because I got sent it by a bulletin, I thought, oh, he's trying to prank me here. But the sad reality was it was true.
No different than everyone else, Jay. You can't, and even to this day, you can't understand how, a new owner can come into a football club and possibly 4 weeks later, send it into administration and send it on the path it's gone. It just doesn't make no sense to anybody. I do feel it was it fair? I'm an advocate of rules. I think when you sign into stuff, you have to abide by the rules. Clearly, Wigan Athletic could not carry on paying, or the owner want to carry on paying the money and the wage bill. And you hear so much stuff around the different stuff of, whys and wheres. And, the owners were only in the club for 18 months. And I don't know what the exact figure was, but I know the figures that they put a lot of money into the club, which they had done. How and why they weren't prepared to just let it go another couple of months and then sell all your assets for the market value that they were worth. If you look at Kiefer Moore, for example, and Ivan Toney, one lad's gone for approaching 10 million and one's gone for 1.6. Certainly Kiefer's market value is not 1.6 million, but that's another story. So why they weren't prepared to let it go for that 2 months, I don't know, and I can't answer them questions. And I do think, even as speaking to you, I think not enough's been spoken about the past, but in my opinion, the future is the most important thing for Wigan Athletic. None of us can change the past now. None of us can right the wrongs that have gone on. Certainly when you go deeper into it, the people that lost their jobs, that still today gets me, because no matter what football club you support, you love your club. And if that club means Wigan Athletic end up playing in League Two every Saturday, that's still good enough, in my opinion, and hopefully for Wigan fans, that it's good to go down the DW and watch your team every Saturday. Because the most important thing is that there is a football club.
I can't echo this enough, because for Wigan fans during this period, I think it's taught them to always cherish a club and not take it for granted, because you never quite know when something like this is going to happen, and unfortunately it has. In terms of, you made some good points there of how this shouldn't have been able to happen. Do you feel like more needs to be done to protect clubs from events like this?
I think club football in general, Jay, has become quite lawless now. Where, ownerships of clubs have genuinely changed now. The days, when you had, a lot of English football clubs were normally owned by local businessmen who supported the club. As you get into the Championship now, and certainly into the Premier League, you've got to be a billionaire to be involved in football now. The losses in the Championship are huge. And clubs who aspire to get to the Premier League, you're probably joining a journey that can be financially perilous, to say the least. I think the average wage, and, I don't mind discussing certain stuff, I think the average wage in the Championship now is rumoured to be around £18,000 a week. And that's the average wage. At Wigan Athletic, we didn't have one player on that money. We didn't have one player on 75% of that money. So the brutal reality for Wigan, whilst people deem we were spending money massively, in my opinion, we weren't. We'd invested in younger players. We brought them in from League One. We had our own good players at the time, and we were trying to join something in what I felt, and I think certainly the guys that were running the club, was with financial prudency, if you like. We weren't putting the club at risk. Obviously, when you invest in a player, for example, you invest in Cedric Kipe for 750 grand. The reality of football is your job's to turn them players your job is to turn them from a 750 grand player into a 10 million pound player. Your job is to play a trade and make players better. And unfortunately at Wigan Athletic, I felt we were doing that correctly. I felt the assets were good on the pitch. I felt with the right type of players coming in and adding to the squad, we'd have been knocking on the Premier League door. Unfortunately, none of that's about to happen.
It's been really sad to see. And through the administration, I feel like, I'd like to say this, you deserve a lot of praise for the clash you showed both on and off the pitch, not just the performances the lad were giving. I recall that on a match day, you rang up personally the members of staff that got made redundant. I remember you went round to the young lad's house, Jacob Benbow, who obviously sold his own toys to raise money for this football club. And after being subjected to the mandatory 12-point deduction by the EFL, you rallied the troops and very nearly pulled off one of, if not the club's greatest ever escape from relegation. How do you reflect back on the final 6 games, and obviously the club showing solidarity in these really dark times?
I think first and foremost, I think the supporters and, the people of Wigan should be very proud of what they've done since the administration. I think the fundraising's been absolutely amazing in today's day and age, where I think everyone knows how hard money is to come by for families, especially in working class areas. There was no way Wigan Athletic Football Club was going to die. Whatever form it would have took with the supporters involved, it wouldn't have died. And the things you do behind the scenes, with the greatest respect, sometimes they're not for publicity, Jay. For the fact that you feel as manager of the club, very lucky, very privileged, very humbled, that one, I still had a job when people never. My salary at that time could have kept a lot of people in employment. The football players were paid well, the management were paid well. And to see people losing the jobs without any discussion about how can we help, how can we could we take pay cuts? What could we do to help money? It was just a case of people were made redundant. And, as a person, as a man, I don't know, from everyone else's point of view, to sit back and watch that is not nice at all.
It was really upsetting to see, because 75 members of staff lost a job, and there's no good time to lose your job. But in the middle of a pandemic, it was really gutting to see. And for me, it was one of the worst elements of administration, because it's a necessarily evil, but it's just so hard to see. And I want to just ask about some of those games during that time, because in the final 6 games, we had some great performances. I remember the 1-0 win over QPR. The cheer after the full-time whistle went still gives me goosebumps to this day. the 8-0 win against Hull City, I think that just speaks for itself, really. 7-0 at half time. I bet you're probably going into the changing room thinking that's probably the most flawless half of football you possibly ever managed. And I feel like it was really remarkable, and we just fell short at the final hurdle, which to actually play and hold a Fulham side more than hold your own against a now Premier League team just shows the quality of that team and that you created. The Banner Brothers, which was a phrase Anthony Pilkington used.
Yeah, and by the way, yeah, Jay, it wasn't just my team; it was our team. There was a lot of other people involved. You know, department in place at the club. You know, that was very instrumental in bringing players to the club. You know, I had very, very good staff. You know, I worked with a lot of good people at the club. And even then, I know it's been, obviously, when you resign as manager, people will always want to know what's your thoughts and why you resigned and, you know, stuff like that. The week up to the Fulham game was so tough, it was untrue. You know, it really, really tested me as a man, you know, because for the administrators coming in, which is tough for the administrators because they have a job to do. You know, no different than if you're a painter and decorator, a train driver, you go to work and you do your job. You know, and I always felt from certain conversations with them, from what happened over Kiefer Moore, you know, from the Fulham results, which probably epitomised the season really, where it was so close but so far, where we just fell short. You know, we managed to get to 59 points, I think it was, and obviously we just missed out on staying up. That win would have given us, but you know, my big thing would have been, where would the club have been today if we'd have stayed up? You know, the players' wages would have still been high. You know, it could have led the club to probably maybe even going under, because the wage bill in the Championship is a lot different than the wage bill in League One. The players would have still left the club exactly the same way. So, you know, in my opinion, it was more a case of, you know, we achieved what we set out to do. We'd finished the season in a great manner. We got to 13th in the league, which unfortunately wasn't enough. You know, but Wigan Athletic was about to head for a few months of real pain, and nothing could have stopped that.
Yeah, it was really difficult to see and watch as a fan. On the 1st of August, you sadly resigned as the manager of Wigan Athletic after 3 years in charge. Are you able to disclose the reasons behind why you resigned?
Yeah, Jay, I had 2 years at there, 3 years at the club. I'd loved my time at the club from being brought in. I'd watched the team grow. I'd watched young men grow into players. I didn't want to oversee what was about to come. I didn't want to oversee players being sold. Like, you know, obviously, Kiefer Moore was the first player. You know, the administrators had come in. And again, I can't emphasise enough how difficult a job, and not a difficult job, how separate a job the administrators have. The administrator's job is not to keep Wigan Athletic fans happy by player sales. It's not to give them great press releases. It's to oversee the sale of the football club. And them guys have a job to do. And I feel that they've done it very well. I've got to say that, albeit I question the prices of the players being sold. I question a million things. That's not their job. Their job now is to hopefully hand it on to a new owner. And I knew the pain of what would be involved. I knew the pain of where it would take the club. And also I knew the wages that I was on at the time. Do you know, when I walked away, I think, you know, the administrators will tell you, I didn't ask for money to leave. I didn't want money to leave. I walked out that day. You know, the disappointing thing was for me, even naturally, people were saying I had a job to go to. I actually could question some people's sanity when they think you've just overseen the last weeks of the season and you'd walk out to go and join another club without the club getting compensation. And sometimes football really disappoints you, but I suppose that's football today.
I think you mentioned it earlier. I think the clamour of social media really doesn't help for stuff like that, because the amount of speculation, you've probably seen it in your time, from transfer rumours to players going here, there and everywhere to stuff like this. I think it is, although social media can be really positive, and there's no denying that, there's also the negative side, especially when we see in football. What was your relationship like with the administrators? And what did you think of the claims that they got good fees for the players under the circumstances?
Again, I'm not going to get involved in stuff like that, Jay, because an administrator's job is to make sure, again, I don't want to get myself into trouble. I'm presuming an administrator's job is to oversee the club being run in a correct and proper way till it's handed over in stewardship to a new owner. The administrators aren't probably, in general, bothered about whether they get 1.8 or 2.5. They just want a payment into the club. And the truth of the matter is, the administrators, in my opinion, no way involved in any of the blame that should be a poor proportion to what's gone on at Wigan Athletic. They've been brought in to oversee the sale of the club, and they're having to do that. They'll always be criticised. I think, is it 21 players have left? You know, I think the first player to leave was possibly Jensen Weir. If Jensen Weir wouldn't have left the club, then the reality is the wages wouldn't have been paid and all them 20 other players would have left free. So you can imagine the difficulty when you sit in an administration room and what you've got to do. So I think the frustration and the anger from everyone should certainly not be at the administrators. It's certainly not their door where the blame lies, in my opinion.
I think that's a really fair comment, because if Jensen Weir's sale didn't go through, the players' wages wouldn't have been paid. And I believe it's a clause where players can walk if they've not been paid after a certain amount of time. So I think it happened at Bolton Wanderers when they went into administration back, I think, about 2 years ago. So to further on the administration, how difficult was it to leave it, and what did you feel that you could achieve with Wigan Athletic? Did you think Premier League was
heartbreaking? Yeah, it was absolutely heartbreaking. I genuinely felt I was happy, I was comfortable. We had a lovely, through the staff, where I was very, very lucky. I had fantastic people around me. You know, Liam Richardson, Andy Barry, who's gone on to Chelsea first team coach, which is great for him. You know, Nick Meese, Andy Proctor, Nick Colgan, Alan Moore, Gary Finley, Chris Brass, the lists go on. You know, I was also working with very good people in Darren Royal, Joe Royal and Jonathan Jackson, who were all running the club on the remit of what we'd been told, you know, which was to try and, I think everyone could see what was going on the pitch. You know, the team was clearly growing and growing, you know, but, you know, I knew what was coming. You know, I did not want to manage the team where it was going to be in the positions it was going to be, where players, it's like everything, it's like a fashion. When 2 players leave, 3 players leave, 4, everyone wants to leave. You know, that's the reality of football. You know, lads want to be, you know, them players who thought they'd stayed in the Championship, I think, forgive me, with contractual stuff, everyone had took 50, 60% pay cuts to go in League One. So if you're a player, Sammy Morsey, for example, the natural thing, even financially, you haven't been relegated. You think you're still a Championship player. And I'm only using Sammy as an example. You know, these lads wanted to stay on Championship money. And I understood everyone wanting to leave. I understood all that stuff going on with it. You know, and I genuinely believe a fresh start for Wigan Athletic and a fresh start for everybody is great. You know, I certainly don't rule myself one day out coming back to Wigan Athletic and managing the club. You know, certainly under new owners, etc., and calmer waters, I couldn't think of nothing better. You know, I loved my time there, you know, but I just felt with what was going on, and certainly my wage as well, where I was committed to 2 years at the club, you know, that the club were in a position where they didn't want to be paying people wages. I felt, you know, Liam, Andy could do my job equally as well, because it wasn't going to be managing a team anymore. It was going to be managing what you were left with. And that's the sadness of Wigan Athletic.
That's the sad reality of what we've seen. And I think Liam's done an excellent job. I think he deserves a lot of praise for the last few weeks, especially to win at Fratton Park, their first home defeat in 18 months. Since April 2019 was a huge achievement, and it just emphasises what a good coach he is. And after really extremely difficult few months, Wigan fans received the news they've been praying for last Wednesday, when the administrators announced that they have reached an agreement from a preferred bidder from Spain. How delighted was you to hear this news?
Just delighted for everyone. I really am. It's, you know, obviously I speak to Liam every single day. I speak to everybody at the club most days of the week. I speak to most people at most days of the week, and you know, I just want Wigan Athletic fans to be able to go back to the stadium, you know, whatever the league in, knowing that the team will be there next week and the week after and the week after, because there's so many friendships and bonds brought through football and through families of kids and fathers and parents and families going to game, that the thought of Wigan Athletic not being there, it just doesn't sit with anyone. So, you know, again, I'm a little bit wary that until the new owner's in it, I won't get overly excited. You know, I just want it all to go through smoothly now. And then hopefully John Sheridan, you know, Liam Richard, whoever's there running the club, whoever the new owners team they want to bring in, you know, whatever way the club, that the future looks a lot better. I've managed to be at the first 2 home games of the season, which is good. I find it difficult not to go down and start telling the players what to do. I said, but, you know, like Everton, I'm a fan, you know, and I'm really pleased to see that they've had a good vein of form and they've won a couple of games, which is great.
It's really nice for you to say that. And are you hoping now that Wigan's future will be secure for the long term?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. You know, you can't run football clubs from window to window. It's not correct. You can't, you know, clubs nowadays, we've seen it, and the financial fair play needs to be regulated properly. You know, clubs can only pay what they can afford. The problem with football is everybody wants more. You know, Wigan Athletic can't pay what Fulham pay. That's life. But we can still draw with Fulham on a football pitch or try and beat them. You know, and the most important thing now for Wigan Athletic is just having a nice, secure, solid future with hopefully owners that come in that are very much hopefully like the Whelan family where you know every week everything's going to be good.
Absolutely, and it's been a good week for Wigan fans in terms of news. In with Reece James, he was promoted to the England senior squad earlier this week. He's still a massive fan favourite. During the fundraising, he helped fundraise for the club in a huge way, donating some of his own money and also tagging a lot of ex-Wigan players on Instagram to prompt their donations. Victor Moses donated 20 grand for this cause. Are you surprised with Reece James' England call?
No, I think as Wigan fans learned and we knew Reece is just top boy, isn't he? He's just a top lad. You know, he's just been called up to the England squad, which is fantastic. And we're all delighted to have played a very, very small part in his career. If every young footballer was like Reece James, then, you know, football would be in a great place where we're all so proud of him. It's untrue.
It's really amazing for Reece, and everyone is delighted to see his development from what we saw every week at the DW to now England and the Three Lions. So to more talk about yourself now, how's it been? Are you missing football? Are you looking to get back into it?
Yeah, looking to get back into it now. Miss it terribly. Really miss the day-to-day involvement. I've never been out of work in my life, really, from playing to going into management. I want to manage again. I'm desperate to get back in. I just want to manage again at a club where, like you were saying, Jay, you know, you're going into work every day with good owners, with good people, with hopefully to progress a football team that if I take over them today, I can make them better tomorrow. So let's see where that goes.
Is there a type of club you're looking for next in terms of must-haves and hopefully haves?
No. I'd like to manage in the Championship. I think when you've been in the Championship for 2 years, I think it's waters that you enjoyed. It's where you feel, especially later on, that you can manage at. I think one of the problems when you come in and with first year in the Championship, everyone thinks, can you manage in the Championship? You know, the problem for promoted teams in every league, it's not necessarily the manager's ability what will see you in trouble. You know, and it can be the manager's ability, obviously. You know, for myself now, the future will bring what it'll bring. You know, hopefully I can get a job soon and get back into the game as quickly as I can because, like every football fan, I love football and I miss it so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of coaches who watch this podcast, young coaches who are looking to progress into the game. A massive Wigan fan I know called Ben Foster. He's at Charlie's under 16s. And a question he'd like to ask and I'd like to ask is, what are your values and beliefs that underpin your coaching and playing philosophy, and how have they changed throughout your career?
I've got very strong values, Jay, on football and the game and how it's played. I'm very much a believer in a 4-2-3-1. I enjoy I believe footballers should work hard on the training ground to better themselves. For example, with free kicks, with finishing, with defending, with heading. I think practice is huge. I think for young coaches, you know, learning as much about the game. You know, if you can study football and formations and tactics. You know, sometimes formations are very overrated. You know, football has always been 11v11 on a football pitch, and you can tinker with that. But as a coach, preparation's huge. You know, having your team prepared, having yourself prepared, having your sessions prepared, and also wanting to learn more. knowledge is an amazing thing, especially in football, because you never stop learning and you never can stop learning. So, them attention to details are huge.
In terms of your time at Latics, you spent 3 great years. It's been one hell of a roller coaster. Is there any games that stand out to you as your favourite?
Oh, we had some crackers, didn't we? To be fair, I think, the League One winning team was a really strong team. The FA Cup run was an amazing run. I think, unfortunately, the game that'll stay with me will be Stoke at home. Unfortunately, I think the Stoke at home game was the height of where I thought how good the team had got to, how strong we were, how balanced we were, how good the team had become. And unfortunately, the next morning was the end of me, or the day I realised that the future wasn't going to be great. So, unfortunately for everyone, while people might think it's Man City, I think the Stoke City game at home will be the one that stays with me forever.
Absolutely. That Man City game for me, I'll never forget it. Man City at that time were blowing everyone out of the water. How did you even mastermind that? It was unbelievable. You had a fiery exchange with Pep Guardiola as well in the midst of it all.
I think, you look back and it was an amazing night for everyone. It was, to actually do the match analysis on Man City was great. To do the strengths and weaknesses was even better, because you've got to give your own team belief that they're going to win the game. So while you must highlight every team's strengths, you can always show them weaknesses. And, watching Man City we had great fun with the players up to it, because even to the last moments in the dressing room, we were laughing and joking how strong they were and how good they were. But one of the big things for us in a full DW stadium, that crowd will always give you a little bit of motivation and a lift. And we had a good team, and we knew, given a lot of luck in the game and a lot of big moments going our way, that we could manage something. And, I think that night will stay with every Wigan fan forever.
Absolutely. You've had a great relationship with the Wigan fans over the years. And what would be your message to them?
Listen, my message to them is I totally enjoyed my time. I didn't enjoy the criticism you were giving me to get me sacked. But having hopefully the club secure in the future will make everyone realise how good it is and how lucky we are to be able to go down to that stadium every Saturday. So I wish everyone the best for the future. I hope one day to be back at the DW. Don't know in which dugout I might be in, but there you go. And hopefully I can get a good reception.
Absolutely. I'm sure you'll get an amazing reception. Thank you so much for your time today. You've been an amazing guest, a great servant to Wigan Athletic as both a player and a manager. You've always been known for your passion, your enthusiasm, your personality that lights up a room. Everyone I've ever spoke about you with has said at the excellent training ground, you was a joy to be around. You can just tell as soon as you entered the room, it lit up. And my final question for this interview, I've said this a couple of times, I will stick to this now. Throughout your time at Wigan, there's one thing that was always certain with yourself, and you had a cup of tea, a brew in hand. How do you make the perfect brew?
Well, I'll tell you what, unfortunately, was the kit man, Ian Craney, we used to have great stories. He'd make me the cup of tea, but if we didn't start well, I'd always throw it away. And he'd go mad at me for saying, if I'm going to make it, you've got to drink it. I think a cup of tea is hard to make, isn't it? I actually drink anything, to be fair. I think the cups of tea, however they come, I think it's just a way of relieving some tension and pressure and a bit of nerve. So I think the tea is just a little bit of a smoke screen to how I'm feeling inside.
Absolutely. But thank you so much for your time today. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I really wish you the best of luck for the future. It's been an absolute pleasure to watch your size develop over the years. And I'm hopeful that we'll see you in management soon in the future. Whether it's with Wigan Athletic, we don't know. Let's hope you can return to the club one day in some way.
Thanks very much, Jay. You take care.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Full-Time Whittle podcast with Paul Cook, please feel free to like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel.